Cisco Alpart plant. My name is Philip Paulwell. I'm the spokesman on mining. To my right is Dr. Fenton Ferguson, spokesman on, among other things, environment, water, etc. Dr. Maurice Guy, spokesman on health. To his right is Councillor Leighton Smith, councillor for the Myersville Division. To my left is Dr. Dwayne Spencer, the People's National Party candidate for South East St. Elizabeth. And to his left is Michael Stewart, the Member of Parliament for South Manchester. We also had with us today, though he's not here now, the Member of Parliament for North East St. Elizabeth, Mr. Evan Redmond. Today was my third meeting with the company in less than a year. I have visited here before, hear the complaints from the residents. In fact, I was invited by both Councillor Smith and candidate Dr. Spencer to hear various complaints about the dust issue, environmental issues surrounding the operations of Cisco Alpart. And of course, associated with that was the issue of water and the promised supplies for the communities. Today, after a lengthy meeting, we noted from the company certain improvements that they have made and a plan of action to fulfill the previous promise of alleviating the serious dust nuisance that has been associated with the plant for many years, but again becoming far more pronounced now that the company has halted operations. They have promised that the requisite investment to put in an up-to-date sprinkler system has been done, and that work will continue, so that by the end of this month we are expected to see significant improvements in the situation surrounding the mud lake. In fact, we were given a tour of the red mud disposal area, where we saw personnel at work. We were told that over 100 persons have been employed from the community to do the installations in the 3 areas of the mud lake, and that it is anticipated that once these sprinkler systems are up and running, there should be a significant reduction in the amount of pollution that we actually witness today. We are holding the company to their promise, and in fact we are agreed to ensure accountability to return during the first week of March to observe what we expect to see a significant improvement in the situation. A number of issues were raised, and my colleagues will mention some of those that affect their area that is going to affect their quality. Okay. But I want to, without preempting my colleague in relation to water, just re-emphasize this other sore issue that I have dealt with before, even in Parliament, before Fenton became a spokesman, that this Essex Valley water project is an instance of discrimination by this current government on the people of these communities, where a project devised over 20-odd years ago was supposed to fulfill the promise of water to these communities facilitated by Alpart. However, the water main has landed in Junction before allowing these communities to benefit from the supplies. And we believe that it is an act of discrimination, and the government must do what it has promised to do long ago, to have water in these communities without delay. I will now pause and invite my colleagues to say a few words about the experience today on this tour.
Let me also, on behalf of the team, express our sympathies with the communities in and around Gisco Alpart, because even although today was a light blowing day when we visited the Mud Lake delivery area, you could see in the far distance what, while reduced, you could really see what the communities are they're undergoing in these areas. I think it was an excellent meeting from the standpoint of what the team would have put forward to them, whether it had to do with health, the environment, and or the mining operations that are now down. And the responses have given us some hope relative to a timeline that Philip would have spoken about, returning on during the first week of March to see where we are in that regards. But I must then join Philip in relation to the Essex Valley water supply. Between 2006 and 7, I had responsibility for water. And we, even at that time, were contemplating the work that would have had to take place to bring water to the many communities and districts in and around that project. We are extremely disappointed, and as the opposition spokesman for water, environment and climate change, very, very disappointed that in the present period the government would have completed the project relative to taking it into junction. Our information that to date only about 5 or so businesses have really connected, and that system no doubt would be a very expensive system to operate. The persons who should have benefited, my information, while the council would be possibly about 45 communities, almost immediately in St. Elizabeth, there are about 40 communities that would and should benefit from that Essex Valley water project. We are calling on the government, the opposition is calling on the government, that we must move with indecent haste to ensure that these communities in and around must become the beneficiaries of water. Right now, from the dust nuisance, there are issues related to water. And while there have been discussion about black tank, we have a multi-million-dollar project that could satisfy those communities in the short run. And it makes very little sense. We are moving for black tanks when we could give the people the connections for potable water. So it is an area of concern, even as I would be concerned about the environmental issues that surround the movement of dust in the area.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I came as a part of this tour to look at the health-related conditions of the result of the dust nuisance, and we recognize that from what we see and even saw, and even though my colleague Dr. Ferguson mentioned it was a very light windy day, the significant amount of dust that we saw emanating from the red mud disposal sites was sufficient to be creating some significant problems for the communities surrounding. Dust nuisance is one thing, but when you are affected by dust from a red mud disposal site, with its attendant problem of creating respiratory challenges, sinusitis with headaches, conjunctivitis, sore throat, asthma, which is one of the things that it can precipitate, then we could appreciate and understand the health concerns and the fact that citizens from the surrounding areas were suffering as a consequence of the dust coming from the site. At the meeting, we understood that there were certain changes made to the policy that was initiated some years ago, and in our discussions with management, we got some assurances that they will revert to the original system of seeking the patients who, or the citizens who are affected, to get medical attention until they can settle for a new system. It is something that we found commendable because from our understanding, the older system worked and patients benefited from it so that their health could be maintained in a certain acceptable way. So we are hopeful that the company will continue to honor its obligations and its commitments, and that when we come back for the review, we will get further on it. Suffice it to say, however, we are concerned about what is happening to our citizens, and as the opposition spokesman on health and wellness, we are also concerned about the wellness of our citizens in this part of the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm here in my capacity as a Member of Parliament for South Manchester, sharing border with South East St. Elizabeth. And I really want to sympathize with the citizens who are being impacted by this wave of the dust, the caustic soda dust, which is really impacting their homes, their lives, and their health in a very negative way. But suffice it to say that in South Manchester, where we have the plateau, mining is still taking place, although the Gisco Alpart plant is closed, and Jamalco is doing the mining for Gisco, and they are stockpiling at Point B, that is in the French Park, Providence area. Currently, we have stockpile of bauxite about 150 feet tall, and there is no cover material for that bauxite, and the dust from the emanating from it is causing grave nuisance to the citizens who reside in those areas there. Matter of fact, this morning they had a demonstration there. I went and addressed them, and we were able to speak to them. And having had this meeting this afternoon, we are assured by the Gisco family that they will be getting some cover material at the earliest possible time to ensure that the dust does not impact the citizens. They are having grave respiratory illnesses. The students are also impacted in the Ferguson School and other schools in the area. And it is really, really creating a havoc in the communities. We are hoping that something will be done, that the mining area will be covered, and that they may cease the mine operation until the bauxite they are able to level off the storage, the height of the bauxite there, which is causing some amount of concern, especially in these windy times. So we are hoping that good sense will prevail and that the company will honor their commitment as they have made in this meeting this afternoon.
Well, I am Councillor Leighton Smith for the Myersville Division, and I must say I'm quite pleased with all of us going to that meeting with Gisco Alpart this afternoon. It was overdue, and I'm happy to say that I'm pleased with some of the discussion that took place. I'm happy also that that they have decided to go back to the policy that was there from 2090, from 1990, over 20 years now. So I was happy to have this meeting this afternoon. See that my voice is gone, so I'm going to ask somebody else to talk.
The dust.
I'll be at work from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow. Come see me in my office. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank all the opposition spokespersons for visiting us here in Southeast St. Elizabeth today and having fruitful discussions with the directors of Alpart. You know, this issue, we've been on this issue now for weeks and weeks. We've been pleading, we've been fighting, we've been with the residents at demonstrations. We even witnessed residents tearing down the gates of Alpart to get justice. Councillor Leighton Smith and myself have been there 100% of the time with the residents, while the government has been silent 100% of the time. What we had today with the company was a reassurance of them reverting to their original policy, which will see patients getting medical assistance and their drugs being covered by the company. We will see them sending out their agriculturalists into the field to do assessments and for farmers to get compensation. We will see residents getting drinking water being trucked to their homes, and we'll also see compensation being paid for the dusting issues. So we're very happy for that, and we're going to be fighting with the residents to ensure that the company stays on track in fulfilling their obligations as good corporate citizens. Better is coming. There will be better representation for Southeast St. Elizabeth, and I am here to fight for justice for our people. Better is coming.
Any questions? No? Yes.
We gave a timeline.
Yes, as I mentioned, we were quite insistent that having indicated to us that by the end of February, the changes will be done, the installations will be completed. We are coming back to ensure that that has been accomplished and to hold them to it. So that's a timeline in relation to alleviating the dust nuisance.
We also understand that the government is planning to respond to this issue that we've been on for many weeks now, and it wasn't until it has reached the boiling point, the 100 degrees boiling point, that we are now seeing a response. This response, sir, is now late. We have already spoken to the company and gotten commitments from them to fulfill their obligations. For that
As mining spokes. How do you see
Yeah.
no problem? That's the thing,
Yes. Yes. I am quite confident that mining in all its aspects is still a viable commercial activity for the country. My analysis is that we have another 50 to 60 years of reserves for the bauxite alumina sector. We do have proven reserves now in copper and gold, and of course Jamaica is 90% limestone, which when you take into account the value added aspects to that, and that represents tremendous wealth. Jamaica's growth in the 60s, 50s and 60s was due largely to the bauxite alumina sector. Places like St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon have developed because of mining. But we have to acknowledge certain facts. I don't think we have been good stewards of the environment. And there's always a tension between mining in communities and the environment. I think we need to upgrade the environmental aspect to insist on the companies doing what they are obliged to do, which is, for example, to deal with the reclamation of lands, to ensure that these gaping holes that many of the communities are faced with are dealt with, and also to ensure that the rehabilitation of these lands to facilitate agriculture, and we have seen it done in areas, should be done and can be done. And finally, to also insist on the companies providing the support for communities to be reestablished, for titles to be issued, and so on. I don't think we as governments over the number of years have managed the mining sector as we ought to, and we now need to insist on these things being done. But mining for me is still a viable activity. You see the shutdown of the plant, Alpart, what that has caused to the growth figures for this year, the GDP. So it is a significant activity. We need to emphasize more value added, so we don't want our bauxite to be exported. We want alumina, and the dream of mine is still that we will have aluminum produced here one day.